Okay, so I am preparing to do a workshop today. So I thought this would be good to go over how to set up the swerve drive base in the first place. So we have our document here, December 17th training. I'll use that. And I just created it, so it's only got the part studio and the assembly. That's it. So I'm going to start off with creating a variable studio. And so the variable studio is where I can put all of my um, different things. So I'm going to start with some variables, height of tube, and using the swerve drive modules. If you look at the drawings from SDS, you'll see that they are 3.75 inches. Um, that's where the top of the tube should be located. So that's where the height of the tube is going to be. The front is going to be, and the reason I'm putting a number is I'm going to be doing some math, and I find it's just easier to set it as a number. Um, so we're going to have a 26-inch wide front, and we're going to have our side is going to be 28 inches. And I think that's all I need. So those are the variables. So with the swerve drive modules, the edges are not um, they're not right to the end. So the tube goes just to a certain part of the swerve drive module, and I double checked that measurement. It's 4.25 inches from the end. So there's my variables. I'm going to go back into the part studio. And first off, I'm going to create a plane, and I'm going to offset the top. And so now I can just type in a number sign, and there's my height of the tube. So I'm going to just name everything as I go to try to keep things a little organized. So there's my plane. So now I can create a sketch. So sketch of drive base, there we go. The letter N normalizes my view. And I'm just going to create a corner rectangle that is a construction. So it's centered on the origin. And then this part that's the front, if I just type a number in backspace, now I can do number sign, and I can easily select my variable. So same thing for the sides. And there we go. So now I have a rectangle that defines my perimeter, and I'm going to use center point rectangle now. And this is where, oops, I somehow clicked something. If I bring my mouse down from the origin, there we go. So this distance is going to be, I'm just going to hit tab, or no, I'm just going to move my arrow over here, and I'm going to, set it to 1 inch. And I'm not setting that distance. I'm now going to go in and hit the letter D to dimension. Click there, and then so 1 dot, so distance from edge, there we go. And because this was a center point rectangle, and the center is vertically constrained with the origin, it automatically resizes the way I want it. So that's fantastic. And I'm just going to do the same thing over here and make sure you see how it's touching there. So it's 1 inch. And now just hit escape and the dimension tool, and I can click those lines and distance from edge. There we go. So I've got my tubing that I need. To make things simple, I'm just going to mirror them. And if I zoom out, so So again, mirror, select that as my axes and select that. And I've got my tube, and that's done. So we have a couple of feature scripts. So the first set of feature scripts, if you go over to search tools, you'll see one. Now you might not have anything in there. This is my personal one, but we have an enterprise one, and there's the tube converter. And there we go. So, oops, I can't do the tube converter. Extrude individual. So now I can just click those, and I'm just going to rotate my view. So the 3.75 is the top, so I'm going to switch with the arrow to make sure that they're going down, and they're going to be 2 inches. There we go. So there's my tubes, and same thing. Now I'm going to do my tube converter one, which I can now select these. And I'm going to turn off the hole patterns. I don't want hole patterns on this. The wall thickness, we're going to use 1/8 inch. We want it to, we're going to keep our weight really down low, and B, we're going to take some hits, so we want this really robust. So there's my tubes. We're coming along here. This is working out really nicely. So now I'm going to just pick one of the tubes, and I'm going to create a sketch. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to find the center point. So I'm just moving my mouse around. There's the center of that, bring it down. And there's my circle. So that's the circle tool, letter C. When you click first, it sets the center. When you move your mouse and click again, it sets the outside area. So this is going to be 5 millimeters thick, and I'm going to dimension that. So click the center, click that line, and move it over here, and that's going to be 1/4 of an inch from the end. There we go. And I'm going to do a linear pattern of that. So what I want to do here is I'm going to do 3 of them, but I'm going to change the direction. And this number is just going to be 1. So, and you'll notice I probably should have started on the bottom so that way it would have gone the way that we expect it to. So there we go. Same thing, I can do the mirror. So this is the advantage of doing things symmetrically. Oops, I'm going to turn off the mirror. And I'll do this one as well. So again, the circle tool, zoom in. When you find the middle point, you just bring your mouse, those orange dots, you can see the constraints. So this is horizontal to the midpoint of that. So now, when I do multiple circles, instead of setting the diameter, what I'm going to do is use the equal sign so that I can automatically change it. And if I decide to change the hole size at all, then it's easy enough I just need to change one number, which makes it really simple. And then this becomes 0.25. And same thing, I'm going to pattern that. And it's already the orientation that I want it, so that's great. And I'll mirror that. And you'll notice I'm not doing holes everywhere. We used to do that. We're trying to really reduce that. Now we're trying to just do the holes that we need. 2 things. Number one, it really reduces our machining time. So and we'll call that sketch top holes. And what we're going to do here is we are going to go right into the extrude. So it automatically selects that, and instead of new objects, we're going to remove, and we're going to select through all, merge with all, and there we go. So I believe I have all of my parts now. So what I'm going to do here now is just have a look at, so this part right here, we're going to set the properties for this. And our drivetrain is always going to be document 1. And so this, I want to set the part numbering for these. And what I'm trying to do here is set the part number and set it consistent with the name, so it's easy for us when we've got documents and stuff. So this is a huge advantage, is I've got the part number, I've got what the part is, and I've got the dimensions of it all in the name. So if I have the drawing to give to somebody to manually make this, then they can do it. And the one that is on the side of the view cube that's the right, same thing. And then later on, when we have done competition, we'll rename all of these 41, 52, 25. But we're trying to speed up the process and just reduce little extra things that don't take much time, but we want to reduce as much time as possible. We are looking at automatic numbering as well. And this might be good to, if we're working on stuff, this might be where we want to reduce the amount of time it takes. So maybe the person building this will do it, and then we'll have somebody else that's job is to just go in and add the part numbers and stuff, so that we can speed up all of our processes. Okay, so there's our part. Now we're going to switch over to the assembly. And in the assembly, we're going to insert those parts. If we just click that, that's going to insert all of them. And instead of Part Studio, give it a name that actually makes sense. So if I look at my front part there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and fix that. So right now, that can't be moved around. Everything else can. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a version here. Actually, I'm just going to go back. The reason I'm creating a version is I'm going to use the version so that I can give this for the workshop. I can give them version 1, and that way I can still work through everything else. So again, inserting, I can click that, insert the entire document, and if I'm careful, everything is set where I want it to be. So that is fixed. These elements can be moved around, but I can't move the front one. So the next part is MKCAD, and if you have the MKCAD over there, you've got it. If you don't, under the plus sign, Applications, go to App Store. And in the App Store, if you do a search for MKCAD, MKCAD, no spaces, there's the MKCAD, and you can insert it. I don't have the insert button because I've already done that, or install it. It's free. And this is basically all kinds of robotics parts that we're going to use on our robot. So once you've installed it, if you click on it in the assembly, it should load up. The first time you load it up, it might not show you anything. You might have to just wait for a bit. If you're really running into troubles, you might need to log out and log back in, just so that it loads it up properly. Okay, so here I am. Everything's organized. There is Swerve. And there you have to pay attention to the different things. So SDS, MK2, Swerve modules, sorry, MK4I. I think that's the one we are using. So we'll probably use the simplified. So the plate position, we're going to use a Kraken for the drive motor, and a Falcon for the steer motor. And if I click insert, there we go. So there's my Swerve module. Good to go. So the challenge now is fastening this. So this is the mate connector. And how fastening works is when you click the fasten, you can click mate connectors. So if I scroll in here, you can see there's all these different things. One trick is that if you're having trouble and it's moving around too much, if you hold down Shift, then it forces whatever plane you had selected, so that you can select a mate connector. And so mate connectors are basically corners of objects, centers of circles, and midpoints of lines and things. So you've got your faces, your edges. There's lots of mate connectors to choose from. So we're going to use that particular circle. Actually, no, we're not. Go back in here. So you see how I deleted it. I'm going to hold. There we go. So I'm selecting the top of that hole. And if you look at it, you can see the red, green, and blue. So that shows you the orientation, which is really important. So now, whoops, so I'm just zooming out here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this top circle. And I find it's really helpful to practice rotating. That's the right mouse button. Panning, that's the scroll wheel. And zooming, which is moving the scroll wheel in and out. So panning, you're holding the scroll wheel and moving the mouse. Scrolling, you're doing that. So I'm zooming in here and I want the bottom of that circle. And I can see the red, green, and blue are oriented the way I want it. And there we go. I now have this mounted. And if I've done it properly, I should see everything lined up nice and tidy. There we go. So this is really good. And the reason I want the simplified is it just takes, it's going to load much faster. So that's something, if I go over here and see the performance, this is going to take 1 millisecond to load up. That's a lot. And again, if I had more holes along here, then it's going to take that much longer. So okay, so now I want to mount this, and this is the thing, is figuring out the geometry. So that last circle, that'll be the one I'm going to use. Fasten mate, zoom into that, and you'll notice there's different edges. So you want to be very careful. I'd like going to the face and then holding down Shift to select it so that I'm getting the face, this level that I want. And then I can select it. Now I'm gonna do it the wrong way. And let me just close that mate connector, and I'm selecting that. So now if I do that, two things I want to show you. Oops. First off, I hit the wrong one. And secondly, you see that gap? So these things are really subtle. You want to be very careful with that. So that's that fasten mate connector. And what I can do is I can just delete it, go back in, and get it. So that's the key thing. So I'm going to hold down shift to make sure that I've got it on that plane. And I want it to be my last one. And you'll notice the blue is pointing up on both of these. So we're going to have something go wrong. So what happens is the blue, it lined it up like that. So that's an issue. Thankfully, if you get into that, this flipping the axes and this rotating or the reorienting can be really handy for a lot of situations like that. So that can solve your issue, and you can see that is flush. Everything is good with that. So we're going to add another MKCAD swerve module. Actually, it's probably easier to just right click the swerve module over in, and there should be a copy. There's copy, and then I should be able to right click and zoom. Now, here's the problem, is that I need to orient this. So if I take that swerve module, if I click it in the assembly, and here's my arrow, so I can do this, and so I can go, okay, I'm going to click that and I'm going to rotate it. And if I just start rotating it, I can then type in how many degrees. So now I've got it rotated 90 degrees. So my fasten mate using this last hole is really helpful. And again, I really find zooming in and rotating really, really helpful. Okay, I somehow did the simplified. There we go. And because I've rotated it, everything's oriented the correct way, which is handy. Now this, you want to be very careful. So what I'm looking for here is, there's my first one. My second one, you'll notice there's no longer a triad here, which indicates that this is locked in position. And it's locked in position because of these fasten mates. So the simplified ones are locked in position, but this can be moved because I haven't fastened it yet. So I will go through that process of fastening it. Again, I'm going to zoom in just to make sure that I'm getting the circle that I want. So that's all good. And same thing, I'm going to copy this. I shouldn't need to copy it. I've already got it. So I'm going to copy two more in here. And so this one here, I'm going to rotate that 180 degrees. And this one here, I'm going to rotate that 270 degrees. I could do 90 in the other direction. So there we go. So that one is there. And again, it's practicing zooming, practicing rotating, really crucial. And if I click this green check mark, it automatically goes, hey, you want to do more? Which I do. So this one, see, it's a little tricky here. And there we go. So this one, I can lock in to that one right there. And I should be good. So this is where you want to orient everything, and you want to zoom in, and you can see I've got a problem there. Okay, look at that. Okay, that's so if I run into a situation like that, I can right click the part. And what I can do is I can show the mates for that part. So there's the mate right there. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that mate, move the part. Okay, and now I'm going to, whoops, going to go back into the mate. It's nice and red, tells me something's wrong. And I'm going to click that and click that. And there we go. I think I've got everything. So zooming in, double checking everything. Everything looks really good. Okay, so that looks good. Now, if you look at the swerve drive modules, you can see, I believe it's quarter 20. And so what you have here, if you think about this, you have 0.158, 0.283. So basically 2 inches, 2.5 inches. So what I'll do is I'll do a 3-inch. So if I just click that face, I should be able to click Insert, Standard Content, ISO, bolts and screws, and here we go. So socket head screws, that's typically what we use. And we have hex socket head cap screw. That's good. So cap screws or button screws are what we use. Because this is offset, we'll use a regular socket head screw. If it was just on the bottom, then we might use a button head. And oops, this is not ANSI. Sorry, ANSI inch bolts and screws, socket head cap screws. Now 1032 is our typical size, but for the swerve modules, I believe we're using quarter 20. You have to double check the documentation. And what did I say? 3.5. And if I insert that, because I had that face selected, oh, that's way too long. Cancel that. I'm just going to do a quick double check of the SDS. SDS swerve drive specialties. So if I pull up their website, I can see the documentation. So it is going to be, it is 1032. Okay, so they've changed that, which is great. And I'm just looking up their documentation. To 1032, 2.5 cap. Okay, so my mistake. Let's go back in there. So select that face, insert, bolts and screws, ANSI. So it is 1032, and it is 2.5 inch cap. And you can see the part numbers already listed in there. We buy these from Fastenal. There we go. So everything seems to fit, and these are actually threaded, so we don't need a nut on the end. So you'll notice I've only put one in there. I should be able to do replicate. And I want to caution you, I want to make sure to only do this, the replicating, when we've got it in our subassembly, because you can't seem to copy. So I'm going to pick that and just gonna, yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? Forget that. If I just do the insert, what I should be able to do is just simply go on in here, and if I just select the different faces, it should automatically, when I click the green check mark, it should automatically do them. And I'm not going to do all of them right now. I'll let you do that. But if I click insert, and the reason I'm showing this is because if you go into the bill of materials, now you've got your different parts. You've got the simplified model. If we inserted the full one, it's going to have all the individual components, and this is where you can change it to structured, so it would just have the MK4i that you could expand to see all the individual parts. And then there is the socket head cap screw. But by doing it this way, I've got my shopping list. So I really want to put those in, even if I suppress them so that everything loads faster. So right now, this takes 5 milliseconds to load. That's not a big deal. So I might suppress it to make it load a little bit faster, but that makes a big difference for me. Okay, and then I can hide all the mate connectors, and I've got it done.